using Launchboom to help me build my advertising to funnel to an email list or to a reservation list was the biggest thing for sure.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Masters of Crowdfunding podcast. Today we have the great pleasure of having Evan Packard on as a guest. And Evan is the creator of Pack. It just launched 4 days ago, and it's already raised $248,000 on Kickstarter. Now, it wasn't all, perfect and smooth along the way. There was like multiple steps along the way, and Evan actually launched another product prior to this second version on Kickstarter on his own websites. So welcome to the podcast, Evan. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about like your initial journey launching the first products with just $1,200 in ad spend, right? When you and I first spoke, and had pretty darn good results there. And then we worked together and iterated along the way to get to, this second campaign here. So tell the audience a little bit more about what your product is and what that first iteration looked like.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So back in June, I'm a big outdoorsman. I love to camp. I love to hike. I love to climb, ski, all of that. And you kind of do like this dirt bag van life version of it where you sleep in the back of your pickup truck or the back of your SUV. And very often people would build their own wooden setups. And I was building mine and I was like, why didn't I just see if somebody sold this? And nobody really sold what I was looking for. And then that's why I decided to start Pack. So Pack creates these affordable, portable car camping and storage platforms that you can set up in 30 seconds to the back of your vehicle. Toss a mattress on there and boom, you've got a nice little camping and storage setup. Rather than just sleeping on the ground, it gives you like the space to have your gear underneath and still be able to sleep on top. So that's what I did. Early in the process, I heard about Kickstarter. And then I remember I reached out. I was just scrolling through Kickstarters, trying to figure out what is this thing. When I initially started looking into it, I was like, are these people getting equity? What's going on here? And then I kind of figured out what it was. And then I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to somebody that had a successful Kickstarter. So I found somebody that made, I think it's like an inflatable rooftop tent, guy named Jake Jackson. Because I think his did 400-some thousand.
Yeah,
something like that.
Stinch pop-up tents, right?
Yeah. And he's done several successful ones. And he was like, hey, I would recommend reading this book. And that was the book Crowdfunded by, is it Mark Packard?
Correct.
And so I started reading that book, and I think I reached out to you shortly after I read the book. And then I was like, yeah, I don't really have a whole bunch of money. So I'm going to do a launch by myself with the first kind of version, very rough version of the Pack Rack, our portable car camping and storage platform. And I'm going to see how well I can do by myself. Now, yeah, I think I spent $1,500 on ads and did about $60,000 in sales. Now, most of that was organic growth through social media. I don't know what my ROAS would have been. I think it would have been probably 15-ish. But I was targeting a very eager market of people that were ready for this product. So, I did about 60,000 in sales on version 1. Then I got a lot of product feedback. Most people liked it, but they're like, this needs to change, improve this. I wouldn't say I completely rechanged the design, but it went through a major rehaul on the design, from the way that the legs folded to the angles of the corners on the platform and all sorts of different stuff. And then decided to join Launchboom and do a Kickstarter for the next round of the new product.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's really incredible to see like how many people just read the book and are able to have, a decent level of success. Like we just had a launch on Tuesday. The guy's name is Jono, actually, and he did the same thing. Launched the campaign and raised like $22,000 or something like that in the last 3 or 4 days. And then, there's a lot of people that we've been able to help with the book. So if you guys are looking at crowdfund, people listening, and just want like a free or next to free resource, it's $7, $8 on Amazon. And we literally put everything that we do in there. So question for you, Evan. You describe yourself as like, you didn't use these exact words, but like technologically challenged, right? And so, launching a crowdfunding campaign requires all of this, setting up of a landing page and all that. How did you do that in your first launch? How did you figure all that stuff out?
I did it, but I didn't do it well. I just hopped on, I typed in on Google landing page or website builder, don't do it yourself or something like that. It was, I'm very much someone that's not good with technology. I don't like learning about it. It's always been challenging and frustrating for me. And I just ended up on lead pages and just threw together a small landing page website. And it was awful. Looking back in hindsight, the thing was butt ugly. It converted at a really low rate. But
the rate that it converted at, do you remember?
Like 3%.
Wow.
Yeah, it was around 3%, and it was ugly. It was there just so people could get more information. Most of my sales were just coming through social media, just people that were seeing the product, and then I would funnel them to literally just a Stripe checkout page from social media. There was no landing page. It would just be, I would put this Stripe checkout link in my bio, and they would just go buy it straight from social media, or they could go visit the website and learn more.
And when you say social media, you mean your Instagram page, right? Because you built up 10,000 followers on that page organically, and that drove a pretty significant amount of the $60,000 that you raised on your own websites initially.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of like just ads through Instagram, so just clicking on a post that did well, and then I would, once it kind of, let's say it did 10,000 views, once it kind of died down, I would just boost that post because I know that people liked it. I knew it was engaging. I knew that spoke to them for some reason, and I would just boost that post as my ad and then have it either funnel to my page where they could follow me or funnel to my landing page where they could get more information.
That makes sense. What would you say was the difference between your, the first campaign that raised, $60,000, pretty good on your own websites, versus the second campaign, which, 3-4 days into the campaign, you're already at almost $250,000.
Yeah, it's like a Altima versus a Ferrari was what I was doing. I was doing the Nissan Altima, and it worked. It definitely was, sustainable to build a decent brand, I think. But the biggest difference was like really diving in on the paid advertising side of things, figuring out who to target, doing purchase optimization, building that email list was probably the biggest thing, because I was not doing that beforehand. I was just trying to get Instagram followers, trying to get my videos more views. But then I realized, if I post an Instagram story, maybe 500 to 600 out of 10,000 people will see it. Versus if I had 10,000 people on an email list, my email list open rates were above 50%. So now I have 5,000 people seeing my messaging and 5,000 people getting the opportunity to buy. And so using LaunchBoom to help me build my advertising to funnel to an email list or to a reservation list was the biggest thing for sure.
Got it. So, even after you started working LaunchBoom for the second campaign, you got some pages up and then you paused, right? And you tried some of your own pages and try to replicate it. But we saw a drop off in the conversion rates. Do you know like what happened there? Because we literally copied and pasted what worked on launch kits over to lead pages or whatever software that you were using.
Yeah, I was using lead pages, and when we paused, I tried to just replicate the launch kit landing page over to lead pages, and it looked the exact same to my naked eye, and so I think there may have been some software thing. I think maybe it was just tiny things that weren't loading or working correctly. Maybe the load time on the landing page was, you know, really slow. Maybe you guys just have some wizard magic that I don't know about. But yeah, when I tried to just copy and paste the landing page when we paused, it significantly hurt. My conversion rates by probably about, I think it dropped from like 17% down to 10%. So, not quite half, but significant amount.
That's wild. Yeah, I don't know why either. That's why I'm asking you the question, why would it drop that much? And, for everyone listening, we do not have some, crazy wizard magic. The landing pages and the designs we've iterated on, obviously, over the last 10 years and running these reservation funnels with thousands of different products. But in theory, if you just copy and paste it and put your own products content on there, it should work relatively the same. So I was really interested in talking about that with you and exploring what might have happened there, actually.
Yeah, I've got no clue. It just, it could have been a variety of things, because then I had to start a new campaign on Meta, and that new campaign had to learn who to target, because you can't just, what I tried to do is I tried to insert the new landing page with a different URL into the campaign that was up and running.
Right.
And then it just completely blew up, because it was like, had to relearn the entire, who to target and all that, because now it's funneling to a new URL, and it doesn't know that that new URL is the exact same thing as the old one. So I had to create a new campaign. It had to go through the entire learning phase again. So that probably played into it, but it definitely did seem like there was something about the page, my guess on the software side, and the load speeds. So when someone clicks on the ad, how long does that take to pop up and show them the information? I'm guessing Lead Pages was just really slow on that.
I see. So why did you choose pre-orders and crowdfunding to launch the product?
Yeah, the answer's pretty simple. I didn't have very much money. I didn't have very much money, and I got a mortgage and a wife, and it just wasn't something. If I was a single guy, I probably could have been a little bit more risky about like ordering units up front, getting it here so people didn't have to wait 2 months to have it, and just trying to stock a warehouse. But for me, it was the safest way to go about starting the business was figure out how many people want it, get the money from them, and then use their money to fulfill the orders, rather than putting a bunch of my money up front, not knowing, are people going to want this? Is the product going to be okay? What happens if I get stuck paying for all sorts of fees for shelving these things? Or for me, it was just a simple, this is the safest, easiest, not easiest, but the safest way and most guaranteed way to get something up off the ground. Without putting myself too much at risk.
Yeah. And how does your wife feel about all this? I mean, she's been seeing you work your tail off for the last, I don't know, since August last year, right? So almost coming up on a year. And, this week to see the results of the campaign and everything. I mean, what has that journey been like for her?
It's been great. She's been very supportive. We've had good communication throughout the entire thing, just telling her kind of what's going on, what I'm seeing, how the interest is in it. But the thing I'll tell people is, like, I started this in June, and I still haven't made money from it yet, because on that first round of orders, I just, parlayed basically all the profit into advertising for this Kickstarter. Because I didn't want to touch all the money, any of the money in my personal banking account or anything like that. I said, I'm just going to use this for advertising for the Kickstarter to try to do that the best that I can. So I wouldn't say it's been terribly stressful, but it has been like, hey, honey, if this thing doesn't work out, I might have to go back and get a 9-to-5 or something like that. And so it's been fine. Thankfully, she works. She's a therapist, and so we have another income that is supporting us. But yeah, it's been interesting not having an income for almost 12 months now, working on this thing.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can give yourself a little stipend at the end of this campaign. What's made you take the leap to like focusing solely on the products? And I mean, it must have been very scary. What was that conversation like with your wife or internally with yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was in finance going down the road to become a financial advisor. And then I actually had a car flipping business before this. So we would just flip high value vehicles. It's a whole nother story, but I kind of already took the leap quitting my finance job to do that. And then that job just wasn't, the ceiling wasn't high enough for me. It's not something that I could ever build up and sell to anybody else. There was no equity in the company that I could ever build. It was just me, and the income wasn't steady enough. So I was always looking for something else, and this idea came across, and I knew basically pretty quickly. I was like, I think that this at least can be more steady than my car flipping business. So I took the leap on that, and I wouldn't say it was much of a leap because I could still do the car flipping on the side to make some money, but it was like the mental leap of, this is what I'm doing now. This is who I am. I got to commit to it.
That's so cool. Yeah, like you mentioned a couple really interesting things that I wanted to point out. Like the car flipping business, it made profits, but there was no equity in that, right? But in this business, there's profit in it. Like if you look at the company profit and loss statement, right? I'm sure on the profit and loss, it'll show a certain amount of net profit, but then you just throw all that back into product development and reinvest back into the business, etc. And you don't necessarily get as much to pay yourself, but the equity is worth a whole lot more because it's a business that someone would actually buy. So it's interesting for founders thinking about like creating businesses. There's sometimes that trade-off there that you have to think about. And I know, Evan, you have an MBA, right? And you've been in finance before. Like, how do you think about that? And does that motivate you more, I guess? What motivates you more, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the model of working that I want to do is build a business, and you have it. Not only can you make income from it, you're gaining equity in it. Your equity is going up as your income and your sales go up. It's kind of like owning a house, right? Not only do you live in the house, not only are you making not income from the house, but you're living in it and utilizing it every day, but you're building ownership of it, and the house is appreciating. So to me, it's like I could go work a 9-to-5 job, but in order for me to I'll get an income from it. In order for me to be taken care of after that job, I can't go out and sell my job to somebody else. Well, now I've got to pull 15 to 20% of my income, and I've got to save that in a 401k, a Roth IRA, other types of, maybe real estate. And I've got to build my own investment portfolio over here to take care of me. Whereas with this, I can do that, and I own an asset based off what I do for work. So to me, that was always huge. It was like, holy crap, I can basically sell what I do for work to somebody eventually. Versus, just one day being like, oh, I'm done, and that's my last day out of the office.
Yeah, I mean, that equity piece, I wanted to highlight that because that's something that's, a lot of people don't think about, right? And I guess having studied to become a financial advisor, I'm sure you saw case studies of this. The people that actually built long-term wealth are the people that built equity, because you could have the greatest W-2, in the world, right? The greatest wage 9-to-5 in the world. But no matter how much you make, the day that you stop working, all of that stops.
Yeah. I think a good story for me was like, finance degree, top of my class, not to brag or anything like that. MBA, top of my class. I come out, I get like a decent finance job, basically set up to take over like a really not big, but sizable financial advising practice in the next 10 years. And I joined this entrepreneur group in town. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado. And one of the guys there, he's like 2 years older than me. And we're going around like asking people what they do for work. And he's basically like, I'm kind of a landlord, whatever. And then I come to find out he's like retired at 27. And he never went to college. You know, he started flipping things on Amazon when he was in high school, built and sold multiple businesses. You know, he like showed up in his Nissan GTR, and I'm like, what is going on? And so he's one of my better friends now. And, but yeah, that was a big wake up call. I was like, oh, wait, you were able to gain equity in this company that you built and you sold it. And then you did that again with another one. And now you've taken the profit, or I guess the sales money from both of those acquisitions, and now you've invested that in real estate, you invested in other things, and now you just live off of it. And that's basically what you do. I was like doing the math in my head. I was like, in order for me to do this at, you know, this financial advising practice to get to where he's at, it would take at least probably 15 to 20 years of really hard work, whereas he did it in like 5 to 6. So strictly from an investment standpoint, trying to get yourself to, I don't want to say financial freedom, but whatever that number is that you need to live off of, to not have to worry about finances, you're going to be able to get there a lot quicker by building a successful business than by getting a really high-paying W-2 job.
That's so good, man. That's a great story. That's, I think, a lot of even founders that are building equity need to hear and focus on, because a lot of founders and product creators, they're treating their business like a W-2 job, right? Working at 9 to 5. But what you really need to focus on, and we talked about this a couple of days ago, Evan, right? Like the defense versus offense, right? You could be answering messages coming in all day, you know, and have the fastest response times to your customers. Or you could be scheduling that out, you know, twice a day, 3 times a day, answer every 4 to 5 hours, which customers are still going to be stoked on, and focus on the offense, on building the business, increasing sales, increasing equity, right? So it's like, how do you work smarter and not that much harder?
Right. I think the big thing for me, like, and this is just general life practices with the business, is there's lots of times, even throughout the day, where you're on cloud 9, where maybe like yesterday in the morning, I had a really slow sales day just on my 3rd day of having the Kickstarter up. But then in the afternoon, I think I had like 30,000 just randomly come in after dinner. And so in the morning, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I suck at this. In the afternoon, I got really high, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm Jeff Bezos over here. Like, this is great. And it's just, you got to stay somewhere in between. You got to have the clarity, and you got to be able to just know that the ups and downs are going to happen, and keep the big picture, and not focus on the small daily ups and downs of success and failures.
Yeah, that's great advice, man. I want to switch gears just a little bit, Evan, back to what we were talking about in the beginning, which was like, you threw up this cruddy, you know, lead pages, funnel, and you collect, you know, you did some social media stuff, and you just got the product out there, frankly, and you got traction. And a lot of people, and it just goes to show, when you have a good product, you actually don't need the best marketing in the world, right? People, if it solves a real pain points, and you experienced that pain point, you knew that it was going to solve other people's pain points, and that's how you knew how to speak specifically to that customer, etc. What would your advice be, Evan, to all of these people out there that are building, but are scared to get their product out there and show it to people? Or they want to file their patents first, or they want to perfect the prototype first, or, you know, whatever it is. What's your advice to those people?
I guess like twofold. Number one would be, I would really hone in on where the opportunity is. For me, I knew that there was a certain price point that I had to bring the market, or to bring the product to market to. Otherwise, there's already a whole bunch of stuff that's out there, right? If I went, so my product is at like the $400 to $500 market. If I was up towards 1,000, nobody would want it, because there's already a lot of big players up towards 1,000. So I would say, figure out where the opportunity is, and no matter what, stick to that. Don't sacrifice on that, because I've actually seen several other companies pop up within the last 6 months that have a similar product to mine, but they're a lot more expensive. And so I know that they're just not going to be able to reach the audience that I'm going to be able to. And then, yeah, just get it out there. Like, I think my first post was in September. And it wasn't even with this product. It was with my storage bin that is going to be accompanying this product at some point. I'm actually probably going to launch another Kickstarter for my storage bin here in a couple months, but just start getting it out there, building a following, trying to get like organic growth. And most of all, you're going to get people's feedback. A lot of those early adopters of it will kind of give you ideas and stuff, and you can make little tweaks. I remember when I first started posting on social media, I would follow like 200 people a day from competitors' social media followings. So I would just go into like a competitor's social media following list, figure out who's following them, and I would just start mass following these people to try to just say, oh, who is this? I'm going to go follow his page now. Oh, this product's cool. So just doing stuff like that to build it up slowly.
Yeah. And by the way, there's companies that do specifically that to help founders and brands gain following as well. So that's a very, very cool and useful technique to gain followers and attention to the products. What about the fear that these people have that are inventing and creating products for, sometimes years, right? If not months? Like, I don't know, what would be your advice to them? And why do you think people do that?
I would imagine they're probably doing it, the biggest thing is like they don't want the failure of, they think they have this idea, and if they introduce it to market and it doesn't pan out, then it's all that time and energy is wasted. And, for that, like, I understand that fear, but you're never going to know unless you go. You're never going to be able to, it's always just going to be a what if you never take the leap with it. So I would just personally much rather take the leap and know that, like, it's like asking the girl out in middle school. It's like, you're not going to know if she likes you if you just sit there and you dream about it all day. Why don't you just go ask her out and see if she likes you? And if she doesn't, move on to the next one. It's going to be okay. Because if you move on to the next one does like you, you probably won't be thinking about the old one too much. So that would be kind of my suggestion, is like, just take the leap. I know it's scary. I know there's a lot of what ifs. What if people don't like it? What if people make fun of me? What if people are mean on Instagram? All those three things are going to happen. But I think if you just take the leap, more often than not, it'll probably work out.
So, to your point too, like, you put the first version of the product out there, and it gained traction, and you did $60,000 in pre-orders on your site, but you got a lot of feedback to implement to the second version. And then you learn from that, the marketing things that worked, what didn't work, etc. And now, again, 3-4 days in, you have a $250,000 campaign as a result, right? But if you were to just continue to work on the product, that would have never happened. And you would have never gotten that feedback, frankly.
Yeah, for sure. It would have never happened. I think that the way that I did it was definitely very slow, definitely very challenging. Hindsight 2020, I would have changed a lot of different things about it. But the one thing that it did allow me was, I think that the product that I'm bringing to market now on Kickstarter, which is a true version 2, is just going to be a whole lot better than what I originally would have brought to market. It's going to be stronger, more stable. It's going to set up quicker. It's going to take up more room in the truck bed or SUV, so it'll fit better. And all of this wouldn't have happened if I didn't get that initial customer feedback with people complaining, telling me they don't like this, they're frustrated with that. Those things happen, and you just kind of have to take it with a grain of salt and learn from it and figure out how to improve.
That's so good. So good. And I can tell you that the most successful product creators and founders that have built and sold multiple products and businesses, that's exactly how they do it as well. They have less attachment to the products, and they'll just say, yeah, let's get it out there. Let's get the customer feedback. Let's iterate, right? Until we become more and more successful. Because the ultimate objective is success, not necessarily, the perfect product in their minds. Because you could try to build the perfect product in your mind, but the market might not think that way.
Yeah. And I would actually say it too. The other thing is because a lot of the failures aren't even product related, it's system related that you figure out what can I be doing on my day to day to get better. And if you just sit there and you have a product in your head that you're just thinking about, well, you're just delaying that further and further down the road. If you never implement it and you never bring it to market and get product feedback and all that, your self-development's going to be a lot more slowed compared to somebody that's really out there pushing a product, building a brand, figuring out what they're doing wrong. Like for me, for example, I am probably not the best at the customer service side of things, getting back to everybody's emails, comments, DMs, taking care. I'm not super detailed oriented, so like that analytical, monotonous work is never good for me. So just realizing that and coming up with a game plan of how do I fix this? And my fix is I've hired a college intern to come in and do that stuff for me, someone that is that way. So now I'm just steps ahead of where I was even months ago from a system standpoint. So it's just these constant little improvements that you get when you actually do take the leap. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, I don't know if you've experienced this, Kevin, but it's like you look at yourself 6 months ago and you're like, that guy knew nothing. You're like, what was that guy doing? He was just running around like a chicken with his head cut off. And so it's just this constant self-improvement and growth and figuring out what systems work, how to do things more efficiently and stuff like that you get when you're kind of in the thick of it, building the brand.
Yeah, I definitely do feel that way. And it's the best feeling, honestly, that's I feel like I can have that. Like I've grown so much in a 3-month or 6-month or 12-month period that I could look at that same person, myself, from that period ago and go, wow, like that guy was completely clueless. and I wish, so actually that's good. Next question. What advice would you give to yourself that started, 12 months ago?
I would say like I spent, I think, too much time on the front end trying to build a perfect product and get everything figured out. I would have been like, just order the smallest amount of units that you can get and just start selling these things right away to people. And then, get that feedback quicker, get that self-development earlier, figure out the business quicker, and then you can do like a big Kickstarter with version 2 or whatever it is, maybe another product. And if you wanted to do that, you could do that. But I think it just took me too long. My process was too long, too complicated. I had the idea in June. So like the first 2.5 months for figuring out who's going to make it, how to make it, what even is it going to look like, what are the features on it. And then the time since then has been like trying to build up a following list, trying to build up an email list, did my first round of orders, and then I did that again. And I think that I could have probably just streamlined things a little bit more quickly in hindsight. So that's what I would have tried to do, was just get it to market faster.
So you also mentioned something that you do every day on a consistent basis that makes you better, right? Or like making those tweaks and optimizations. What is something that you do consistently every day that produces better days for you, that helps you deal with those ups and downs like that you felt, yesterday, day 3, where you felt like, you were useless in the morning and Jeff Bezos at night? Like, yeah, what are routines or habits that you have?
I think there's 2 things that I really do. Every day I either go, so I live in Colorado and there's like a small, I won't even call it a mountain. It's probably 400 vertical feet. That's near this golf course that I live off of, and there's a trail. And most days I go and I just do that trail. It's like 2 miles, whatever, 400 feet. I just walk it. And on those walks, there's just a lot of good self-reflection. You clear your mind and all that. And then the other thing that I try to do is I try not to work at like in a office by myself too much, because then I just get trapped with my own thoughts and my own emotions. So if I notice I start to go down a bad rabbit hole, I'll be like, all right, I'm going to go to a coffee shop or something, because there'll be other people around. I'll probably be a little bit more level-headed. I won't throw a shoe against a wall. I don't know how to, because I don't know how to program. I mean, right now I don't know how to program my meta ad pixel. I'm pretty sure the Launch Boom team probably thinks, they don't think I'm an idiot, but they're like probably laughing at me because it takes you guys like 2 seconds to do that. And I have no idea how to do it. So stuff like that, just regulating the emotion, clearing my head, and taking care of myself.
Well, you know how to get a hold of us and the team and to get those answers. So that's really, really good advice. Just like changing your setting and being out in nature. That's fantastic. What is one trait that you admire most in other people that makes you go, wow, and why?
I think like the biggest trait that I would admire in people is like they have the switch in their head to work. Not 9 to 5, but like when they sit down to work, they work. And then when they are done, they flip the switch and somehow they turn it off. Because I can't do that. Like my dad, he's been an engineer for 20, 30 years. Well, he doesn't talk about work. He doesn't think about work very often when he's off the clock. But boy, when he sits down to work, he works, and he works like a dog. And that's not me. I don't think I work like a dog too often when I sit down to work. But I'm constantly working in my head. I don't turn it off. So I guess that's yin and yang there, right? Like, I work constantly in my head. I have the ability to do that, constantly problem solve and dream and think. But when I come across somebody like that, where they really have good boundaries around work, but when they show up to work, they get things done, I'm like, holy cow. So I really admire that.
That's good. That's a good one. I think it is a skill that gets developed as well, Evan. So definitely, I feel like I was the exact same way, by the way, when I started my first business. And then it took me probably 7 or 8 years to get to like a point where I was moderately okay with it. And it required just constantly struggling, putting systems in place to put my phone on airplane mode, etc. And like thinking, okay, what is defense? What is offense? And like constantly reminding myself of that too.
Yeah. I can, like one thing I would say to like, I had this motto in college, and really it was just an excuse to, I don't know if it was not try hard, but to go do the things that I want. But I think it was something like temporary inactivity promotes long-term productivity. Or it was like, if you take a break and you take care of yourself and you leave work at work and you let your mind clear, you're going to be able to show up a whole lot more rejuvenated and a whole lot more productive the next time that you pick up work. So yeah, I guess it is a learning curve. I'm not there yet. I just kind of work on things throughout the day, all day, every day.
Yeah. And there's a lot of science behind what you said as well. Evan, like being able to actually step away, focus on other things. I think nature is a really good one, because nature just sort of automatically pulls you in. So I think that helps that you're an outdoorsy person. That's really, really good. Do you have a piece of content, a book, a movie, podcast that's has been life-changing for you, or that you would recommend to other people?
A book? No. I'm not a big reader, Kevin. I do listen to podcasts. Let me try to think of something here. I do like a lot of Alex Hormozzi's stuff. Oh yeah, not a book, not a podcast, but the person that I really like to follow on social media is Jesse Itzler. Do you know who Jesse is?
Oh yeah.
So Jesse's awesome.
Yeah.
Because his whole thing is like, you don't even need to know what you're doing before you go and do it. Like, he's like had a background in rapping, was doing theme songs for pro sports teams. And then he started a several $100 million private jet company. It was Marquis Jet. They were the first one to make like the punch card for jets. So he had this idea, and he knew nothing about jets. He knew nothing about anything like that. And he went in and he built a multi-million dollar, $100 million private jet company. And so Jesse's just really good with, I don't know if I would say he changed my life, but just with like dream big, go and try it. And like he has a lot of good, he's got the big ass calendar. I don't know if you've seen that, where it's like, he just has a lot of good life advice and a lot of good entrepreneur advice that I think is not like, it's not on the guru side of things. It's very much just on like, this is what's worked well for me and I'm sharing it with you. It's not like he's selling a course or anything like that, but he has a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he has a good book too, Evan. I don't read a ton either. I like to, it's hard for me to sit down and focus on one thing, to be honest. But he has a really good audiobook, Living with a Seal and Living with a Monk, and fantastic. And yeah, he also has this this thing that I want to do where, instead of going to Mount Everest and risking your life summiting it, he's got this thing where he climbs this mountain in Vermont like 7 or 8 times. The lift, you climb to the top and the lift takes you down and you climb up to the top again. The lift takes you down. It's like 7 or 8.
Oh, it's 29029.
Yes, that's like exactly. Yeah. And I definitely want to participate. That's on my bucket list, actually. It seems like such a cool experience. And it's all about building like your life resume, right? Like not just your work resume and what you've accomplished in your career, but what did you accomplish in life? What relationships did you have? What experiences did you have? That's a really, really good one, actually.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think the thing that was life changing for me actually was when COVID happened. I was in between college and grad school. I was kind of taking like a break of 7 months, and I actually just climbed mountains the entire time that I did that. And there was this one mountain in Colorado that I really wanted to climb. I could have done it myself, but my mom made me hire a guide. Because it was just like a little too dangerous for her taste. And so I hired this guide, and the guide was like, I don't know. I saw him on Instagram a few times and all that. He like slept on the summit of every Colorado 14er in one summer. He's just this crazy guy, Mount Everest guide and all that. And, he's just a true mountain man, mountain person. And I hired him. And first of all, like, being around somebody that's like climbs Everest and does all these crazy things, it was like having conversations with him about fear, how he handles that, how he dreams big and he doesn't let fear get in the way of him. But it's kind of like he's not reckless. It's just if he dies doing something he loves, he doesn't care. There was that, but then there was also, we started climbing this mountain and he's like, hey, my buddy Mike's going to join us like at this junction. Do you know where I'm going with this? And he's like, I'm like, okay, Mike. I show up and it's Mike Posner. And I'm like, like, Mike Posner. Yeah, Mike Posner. He wrote, Cooler Than Me, Pill on Ibiza. But he walked across America and then he was training to climb Everest.
Right.
And that was kind of like, wait a second, like talking to somebody like that where it's like, all right, so hip hop artist, like Grammy nominated, famous, at like 20. You walked across America, now you're going to go climb Everest? Like, there's just these stories and these people that I started to like interact with that I was like, these things you're doing are larger than life, but you're a person. Like, you're just standing in front of me and you're a person. There's really not much difference between you and me. Why can't I just, not that I want to climb Everest or anything like that, why can't I just do things like that? Right? So when I got introduced, kind of bring it full circle, when I got introduced to my friend here in town that's basically retired at 27, I was like, wait a second. Like, this is the same thing. You're just a dude. I don't think that any of us really truly have a superpower or anything like that. Why don't I just learn from you and see if I can apply what you know and you've done in your past, so I can kind of get there too at some point a lot quicker than I thought. So that's kind of full circle what I think changed my mindset of hearing about these things versus trying to do these things.
That's a really, really good story. I was following Mike Posner on, social media and seeing him climb mountains and prepare for Everest and walking across America. And he inspired me to do a lot of things as well, actually, like seeing his shift from, in his words, like chasing girls to like chasing, like more satisfaction in life, like filling that void, in a more wholesome way, was a very inspiring experience for me. And it actually inspired me to, go to Burning Man too. Like he talked about how he found his love for music again after getting like super burnt out from it, doing performances all year long, etc. And then, he was at Burning Man and shared his love for music with people and saw the inspiration on people's faces and fell in love with music again. So yeah, it's so funny that you bring these people out that I've been inspired by as well.
Yeah, but he's a great guy too. I remember when I was climbing with him, it was like, he's just a normal dude. He's just a normal guy, really like nice. He's asking me all sorts of questions about me and at my time then my fiance, and just a normal conversation. None of that didn't come off like you would think like somebody in Hollywood would come off. That's not him at all. So it was cool being around him.
That's quite a life experience that you can add to your resume, man. I'm glad your mom made you hire that guide. Well, we're coming up on time here, Evan. Really appreciate you taking so much time out of your busy day. I mean, you're 3-4 days into your campaign, and you're on this podcast with us to share your experience. And I think a lot of people will benefit a lot from hearing your story and your learnings, your mistakes, etc. Is there anything else that you want to leave with the audience and the listeners before we hop off here?
I don't really think so. I would just go out there and I would do it. Don't hesitate. Don't wait. Be smart about it. But if you got an idea, you're thinking about something, just go pull the trigger. I'm not saying quit your 9 to 5 early or anything like that, but start working on it. Start bringing it to life. Doesn't work out, just get on with the next one.
Solid. Where can people learn more about the Pack and find you on the internet?
Yeah, so we are on Instagram, would be the best place on social media, at pack.products, PACK.products. I don't need to spell it out. And then online at getpackproducts.com. That's our Shopify website. So you're actually going to be able to go on there and find a whole bunch of images and product info and all of that. Hear a little bit more about the story and how I got started.
Fantastic. Yeah. And check out his campaign as well. Just search the Pack Rack car camping on Kickstarter. That'll come right up. Again, today is Friday, May 10th. And it's already at $248,000 on Kickstarter. Really, really incredible work there, Evan. And thank you for sharing your knowledge and your time with us.
All right. Thank you.